Hey y'all, it's Savannah and this is Savannah Says. So today I'm here to talk about my May wrap up, all the things that I read in May, and then in another video, which I guess the next one will be like me talking about my plans for June and what I hope to do for June, which I have things in my mind, I have like ideas, so let's get started. All right, so in the month of May, I read 16 books, which is a lot. First book I read in May, or finished in May, I started in April, was the 7th Zodiac Academy book called Heartless Sky. I gave this 4 stars, and honestly, I gave it 4 stars because at this point in the series, I'm a complete shill. I'm like deeply, extremely overly invested in the characters' lives, and I was reading this book pissed off because I was just like, I need something good to happen to my faves, right? And I gave it 4 stars because it's just very much like me being obsessed with the characters and wanting what's best for them in their lives and like wanting them to be happy. Yeah, this book emotionally tormented me. It was way too long. It was like 900 something pages. I think the Kindle version, which is the one I read, was like almost 1,000 pages, and I read every page pissed off. It's just like over half of it, nothing happened. There's way too many POVs. There's more POVs than there are that people that I care about, so it was just hard for me to like follow the plot of the people that I wanted to follow, so I did a lot of skimming. But like overall, 4 stars. Obviously I'll read the next one. The next book I finished was Diamo by Sienna Minx, which was the 2nd book in the Mafia series. And I know like I said that I would never read another one of these books. I lied. I gave this 1 star, literal trash. I could care less about any of the characters. I could care less about anything they had going on. I didn't like the main character, Mira. She was annoying. She remained annoying. She was annoying from the first book, never got better. She was like weirdly obsessed with her ex the whole time. She kept talking about how her ex wasn't a bad guy, and I'm like, why are you concerned about your ex? Like, the whole point of the series is that it's like a mafia romance, and the mafia guy you're with, they literally have a child at this point. She's like still talking about her fucking ex. I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm done with this, done with the series. Trash. Next, I read Mafia Mistress by Mila Fenelli. Everybody on the internet apparently likes this book. Like on Goodreads, this has really high ratings, but I gave it 2 stars. It was boring. It had an age gap, which like I know I'm a hypocrite because I read another book with an age gap in May that I actually liked, but this one was like fucking weird. The main character is this girl whose name I don't remember, and her dad is like a mafia guy, and he sells her to be like in this arranged marriage with this other mafia guy he's like the head of a more powerful family. So she's arranged to marry the powerful guy's son. But then the son's gay, and so they become friends. Because they're friends, they don't want to be married. And then the dad is like obsessed with her. He thinks she's hot. He wants to like get with her. It's really weird. Like the dynamics that they have are like very much not equal. Like she was taken there against her will. In the very first like moment she gets there, the powerful dad like locks her in like a cellar, and she's afraid of the dark and she's claustrophobic. And I'm just like, this is not a good start to this relationship y'all want me to root for. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. I gave it 2 stars. There's apparently a 2nd one. I obviously will not be reading it, and I think there's like a baby involved in that one, so like absolutely not. Next, I read The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake, which I gave 3 stars to. I did like a whole video about why I didn't really like this book. It was okay. There was virtually no plot. There was no plot. The plot is just them learning how to use their magic, but not even in an exciting way. And everybody was unlikable and pretentious. And so all of those combined with like the lack of plot, like just pissed me off. Garbage. I will read the 2nd one though, because the way that the first one ended was enough of like that I'm interested in the next one. She's got one more chance for me. Next, I read this book called Rafsonic by Talasa, which is the first in a series called the Bargainer series. What is this book about? It's a fae romance about this girl named Calliope is her government name, and she is a siren, so she's like a supernatural being in a world where people are generally human, and she owes this fae, this evil fae by the name of the Bargainer. She owes him repayments. Like this Bargainer will come if you call him, and he will grant you like any wish you want, but you have to repay him. So she has like all these favors she has to repay, and so the Bargainer comes back and he's here to like collect payment. But of course, because it's a fae story, it's involving like fated mates, I guess is what the trope is called. The book was okay. Like Callie's like a PI, and the book is told from like split timeline from like her in the past to how she met the Bargainer, whose name is Desmond. Why is his name Desmond? I don't know. I actually hate that about him. I thought this book was okay. It was okay. I gave it 3 stars again. and like it was like the fact that I can't even remember the plot. Nothing happened until like the last like couple of chapters. If I'm reading a whole 300 something page book and you don't give me anything until page 330, I'm pissed. I think overall this series is going to end up being like a 3-star for me just because it's just boring, but like it's not boring enough that I want to quit. Next, I read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. My girl Penelope, 4 stars. This was great. This was an age gap romance about a 19-year-old girl who moves in with her boyfriend and the boyfriend's dad in the boyfriend's dad's house. And the boyfriend's dad named Pike and the girl named Jordan, they fall in love. And I thought it was a realistic portrayal, and it felt more realistic than that other Mafia book. The girl had like no personality. Jordan had a personality. She had something. She was giving me something. She was giving me intellect, okay? And I think that is what made the difference for me. And like the romance was just good. That's why I enjoyed it. 4 stars. Next, I attempted to read a book called Cream of the Crop by Alice Clayton. When I say attempted to read, I DNF'd this because I know you're looking at this cover and you're probably like, why in the fuck was she reading this? The question we all want to know. I paid $8.99 for this book. One of my best friends was like, oh my god, you love smut, you're gonna love this book. I'm starting to question if she even knows what I like to read. This book was literally so bad that I could only get 25 pages into it before I had to return it. It was unreadable to me. It's about this girl whose name I don't remember, don't care, and she is like a size like 19 woman, which she says every other paragraph that she's a size 19, which I love the rep, but why are you telling me every paragraph? She also had a sweet rack, according to her. She's in love with this guy who she's in love with dairy products. She's like weirdly into dairy products, and she's like in love with this guy who runs like a milk stand at the farmer's market. And that's as far as I got, because I was like, you know what? You're trying to make dairy sexy. I'm not seeing it personally. If you think that somebody drinking milk is like what's turning you on, I pray for you. I pray for those who like this book. It was trash. 0 stars, literally unreadable. Next, I started another series. I read the first 3 books. The 4th one is coming out like next week, I think, so excited for that. It's called the Playdate Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy, and the first book, Guild, is about this girl named Auren, and she is basically gold touched. Everything about her is gold except her teeth and the whites of her eyes. And this book is a fae / magic inspired retelling of the Midas fairy tale. It's a good book. I mean, I gave it 3 stars, which okay, but this to me was just a situation where I was not prepared for like the speed at which the plot was going to move. We have got to put a stop to these authors like writing these long ass books and nothing happens. Nothing happens. Why are you writing a 500-page book and nothing happens for 400 pages? Like, now I'm fucking mad. Yeah, I'm the clown because I'm reading it, but I want you to know that I'm pissed off about it. Like, just speed up the plot. No one is stopping you from speeding up the plot, right? Like, literally no one. I was expecting the plot of it to be like, we didn't go there at all. Next, I read the second book in the series called Glint. Same thing. This is where I really was getting pissed off though, because it was just as long as the first book. Like, let me see how long it was. Goodreads says it's 441 pages, which is not that long, but like it's long enough that if nothing is happening. And then this one was even more egregious because not only were they not traveling, they were literally just at a campsite for the entire 400 pages. In the last 41 pages, like shit actually hits the fan, but for 400 pages, they're just in one spot. They're camping in the snow for weeks. I'm just like, if I wanted to read a travel story, I would have read one. The cliffhanger at the end of book 2 was chef's kiss. It was good. I was shook. I was like, what? So I will say that it eventually got good, but like I don't appreciate that I have to read 400 pages to get 40 pages of like excitement. And I'm imploring authors to just write the plot from the beginning. There's no reason I have to be slow burning for 400 pages. I gave it 3 stars because, again, the same shit from the first one. It was just so slow, but then the last like 30 pages, 40 pages, I was into. Next, I read The Awakening. What's it called? The Awakening as Told by the Boys, which is like book 1.5 of the Zodiac Academy series. This book was okay. I gave it 3 stars because at that point, I have already read all the Zodiac books and I already knew what the plot was, so I didn't really need like extra insight into why these characters were doing what they were doing. But I read it anyway because, like I said, I'm a shill. If you know, you know. Orion. Next, I read Gleam, which is the 3rd book in the Playdate Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. And I gave this one 4 stars because, again, this one was 613 pages. And the first thing that I typed was, we have to put a stop to these authors dragging things out for the sake of page count. clearly Raven Kennedy just likes stringing me personally along, personally victimized by Raven Kennedy. This book was better than the other two, but also from what I can remember, like the main character, Aaron, is just so annoying to me that like it takes her so long to get the picture. So once she finally gets on the same page as everyone else, you're like, that's what I like to see. I know like I complain about the over usage of POVs in like Zodiac Academy, but I think in this series, having at least another POV would have saved this for me, because like Aaron is so annoying. It's marketed as fantasy romance, but I'm gonna be real with you, the romance doesn't happen until book 3. So don't read this. Again, I feel like I'm always giving these warnings. Don't read this if you're looking for romance immediately, because you're not gonna get it. You're gonna be wondering who the love interest is for 3 books. Next, I read the second book in the Bargainer series called A Strange Hymn by Talasa. I gave it 3 stars, and I don't really know if I like this series. Like, I bought all 3 of them, all 3 of the books when I was like reading the first one because I wanted to binge read, but like it just left me feeling so like uninspired that I didn't like immediately binge read them. I gave it 3 stars, which these books are just okay. This one had more of a plot though, which I appreciate, but again, it's marketed as fantasy romance. I'm sorry, if something's marketed as fantasy romance, I want to read romance. If I wanted to read just fantasy with like fantasy being the primary plot, I would do that. When you market something as fantasy dash romance, I want to see the dash romance. I could not even tell you why the 2 main characters are supposed to be together, besides the fact that the author wrote down that they're fated mates. Do they even like each other? They don't kiss, they don't hug, they don't do anything. They literally spend all their time doing other things with and for other people. What? If you're gonna market it as a romance, I want to see the romance, and there wasn't any. There was enough like plot in this that I could like excuse the lack of romance, because at least I was getting something. In the first book, I was getting no romance and no plot. 3 stars. Again, the third one needs to scout me, because if it doesn't, pissed. Next, I read The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia. This is a historical lesbian romance, sapphic romance. First of all, I'm gonna just say, I don't think historical romance is for me. I gave this 2 stars. I was just bored, you know, like I was okay with the main characters. Like the one girl, Lucy, the one with the brown hair, she wants to be an astronomer. Father was an astronomer. She like ran all his calculations, did the math for him. So when he dies, she hears this opportunity about like this famous French scientist needs his work to be translated into English, so she wants to be the one to translate it. Of course, because she's a woman and they're living in like London in like the 1800s, no one takes her seriously. So she ends up meeting this woman, the blonde lady, whose name is like Catherine or something. And Catherine is like a countess, lord, whatever, lordess, whatever her title is. She has money and she basically bankrolls Lucy, and then they fall in love. I mean, that sounds fine, and I guess it was fine. I was just like bored, and it came to a point where it's like, I don't even care about the science part of it. I just want to read the romance part of it. And I know it's like historically accurate, but I cannot get behind like men treating women like shit, even more so in the 1800s. I couldn't handle it. And then like in the last 10% of the book, they have like some miscommunication, break up the couple event, and like I hate that. Y'all live together. They have lived together the entire story. So at what point did you like have this conversation? Like there's no reason you should be miscommunicating about anything when you literally live together. 2 stars. I probably will not read the next one because I just don't care about historical romance, but like it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I might. Next, I read Pestilence by Talasa, which was the first book in the 4 Horsemen series. I gave that 3 stars. Very mid reading month, apparently. I did like a whole video on this as well. It was just like, again, it's a dark fantasy. I wouldn't even call this fantasy. I would say this is a dark apocalyptic romance between a girl named Sarah and Pestilence, who is like the first horseman of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, who basically just signify the end of the world. He comes to Earth and he starts killing people, and through this they come to know each other and they come to accept each other's faults, and they fall in love, which personally I don't think that I could fall in love with a horseman of the apocalypse. He's spreading the plague and she's in love with him, and you know, at first I was like, oh, this could be kind of good, but the longer I read it, the more I was kind of like, I'm not really seeing it. I think though at this point, this is the 4th book that I read by Talasa. She's boring. I thought it was boring. I downloaded the second one because of course I did. Will I read it? Probably not. There's no version of forgiveness for me that I think would wash those transgressions away, but good for Sarah, good for Laura, and good for the horseman. Next, I read The Thousand Crimes of Minx by Tom Lin. I gave this 2.5/3 stars. I'm hesitant to say I didn't like it because, first of all, let me just say what this is. This is like a Western. It is a Western about this Chinese man who is trying to seek revenge for his wife, which is basically the plot of like every Western. But along the way, there's like magic involved, some magical realism. I don't want to say I didn't like it because this is the first Western I've ever read. For the most part, the Western-y parts of it I enjoyed. enjoyed. Like the violent fights, the descriptive fights, like them riding horses and shit, like I was into that. The magical realism part kind of lost me. There being magic in this world has nothing to do with any of the plot, and I think I would have liked it more if that was tied into the westernness of it. I also personally did not like that it was like a day-to-day travel story. This was literally like a sun up to sundown. We walked through the desert. We're thirsty. Something happens. We're thirsty. They might die. We're thirsty. Something happens again. It was hot. We have 40 miles to go on the horses. The horses might die. We need water. Shootout. Go to sleep. Rinse, repeat. And like for me, I think that it just could have been better. I mean, I'm not a writer, but I think that it could have been better. I will continue to read westerns because I like the vibe. Lastly, what I read in May was It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. It is the first book in the Bellinger sisters duology, I guess. It's a contemporary romance, as you could tell by the cover. And I think this was the moment for me that I realized I do not, like I already knew this, but it signified, solidified, final answer. I do not like contemporary romance. I just think it's so dumb. Like this book is about a girl named Piper who's 28. She's 28. She's a socialite. She's like a Paris Hilton type, but I guess she's supposed to be based off of Alexis from Schitt's Creek. She has no personality. Like she has a personality, but she's just annoying. So she gets sent to this fish town where her biological father is from. She was adopted by her stepfather, and she ends up at this town, this fishing town, and she meets this man who's like the head of the fishing boat, the captain, the head. He's the captain of the fishing boat. They start a romance, and it was supposed to be like enemies to lovers or like grumpy sunshine, but like they were never enemies. The moment she gets to town, everybody likes her. She's nice. She's like caring. She goes out of her way to help people, and the guy wasn't grumpy either. He was literally just like a person who didn't want to talk if the situation did not require conversation. So I'm not really sure why people were marketing it as grumpy sunshine or enemies to lovers. Like that's another one where people need to stop saying things are enemies to lovers. They're not enemies. Just because you don't get along with someone does not make you their enemy. Just because you don't want to talk to someone, not their enemy. Enemies to lovers means we have history and I hate you and I will never wish good for you, and then we fall in love. What will it take for me to get that in a book? 3 stars. That was every book I read in May. Hopefully you find something interesting there. I think this month was a little mid for me, but like overall it could have been way worse. Let me know what you read this month, what you didn't read, what you listened to, what you might listen to, what you're feeling, how your vibes are, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.